Okay, so I'd like to welcome Tori Shaw from Not Forgotten Ministries to the King's Report. Welcome, Tori.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah. Okay, well, what is Not Forgotten Ministries and why did you start it?
So, Not Forgotten Ministries is a ministry dedicated to helping post abortive women find healing. So, those who have had abortions typically hide it and spend years of their life regretting and being filled with shame. And we know that God does not want that for them. And so we provide Bible studies and weekend healing retreats to help them find the healing that God wants for them. And I began this ministry because I myself had an abortion at 16 years old, and it took me 17 years to talk about it. I was just a shell of myself, and filled with shame and regret and guilt, and just wouldn't even give this part of my life to God. But once I finally did um, receive the healing that He wanted for me, He's used my story in an amazing way. I started the ministry to help other women experience that healing and freedom. And we also help women share their stories, because we fully believe if women would share their stories about abortion, we can change people's opinion about abortion, because we know what it really is and how horrible it can be for, or usually is for, most women and families. So.
You know, there are a lot of politicians and advocates of so-called reproductive rights, and they say that there really is no problem with abortion. And what would you say to somebody who, there are a lot of women in college actually who think that this is the most important issue, that their right to have an abortion? What would you say to them?
I would say that while women should have a say so about their bodies, the baby that God has created in their womb is not their body. It's a different body. And so they don't really have the right to end that life. And while they think it's something that would be empowering for them, in reality, it destroys part of a mother's, a woman's heart. I think God created all women with that mothering, part of them, whether that be birthing a child or birthing other things in life, like ministries or businesses, or ideas. Like He created us with this birthing, mothering part of us. And when we in the life of our child, whether we think it's our right or not, something happens within us and it changes us forever. And so I would just encourage anybody that thinks that should be their right to consider that the baby is not their body, and that there are ongoing consequences for something like abortion.
Okay. I mean, have you had these kinds of debates or discussions? I'm just curious.
Definitely, yeah. People will say things all the time, um, but I stand firm in what I believe because I've experienced it. I was 16. Even nowadays when I talk about it, people will say, "Oh, you were only 16. No big deal." But that didn't change for me the impact it had on me negatively, my emotions, my spiritual well-being. I have been affected by it for the rest of my life since then. And so whether it should have been my right or not doesn't change the way it affected me. And I don't want that for other women. And so, yeah, the people that do talk to me about that, I just try to share my personal story because they can't really refute that.
And now, in your ministry, do you find that there are many other women who have this kind of pain from or regret their having abortions?
Oh, absolutely. Once I started sharing my story and we started the ministry, I just have had people coming out of the woodwork. I would have never imagined how God would use this ministry. We currently are helping women all across the country, across 3 different countries, actually, 8 different countries, actually, and 3 different continents. So there are people just coming from everywhere that are finally willing to talk to somebody, because typically women who have abortions will only talk to someone else who's also had an abortion, because they're so ashamed and so afraid of the judgment they'll receive. So once they see somebody saying, I've had an abortion, you can talk to me, they just kind of come out from everywhere. And we know 1 in 4 women have had abortions. So there are hurting women everywhere, but they're just hiding it because they're so afraid. So yeah, I have seen more than I could have. I mean, I knew there were hurting women out there, but I never realized how quickly they would start, coming to me and asking for help. And the Roe versus Wade decision last year triggered so many women, and so we've seen a huge uptick in the just the outreach of women seeking help and healing.
Oh, really? Yeah, that's interesting because I mean, it also kind of provoked this strong political activism from so-called women's groups, right? That
Right.
fighting for uh, yeah, I love how the left uses language, reproductive rights. It sounds right to choose. I mean, it sounds like you're choosing something on a menu or something. I don't know what, but
Right.
yeah,
Yeah, they're not thinking at all about the consequences and, the full picture of what abortion really is.
right. So I get you have a lot of women in North Carolina who are coming to you, or do you go to other states?
We provide online Bible studies. So that's where we get a lot of the ladies from across the world, really. Um, we've had women from New Zealand and Germany and, all sorts of areas, Australia. Um, but we have had a lot of ladies from North Carolina, especially attend our weekend healing retreats that we have twice per year. But we've also had people fly from Canada, California, Oregon, all the way to North Carolina for our retreats, because they're just so desperate for healing. And we provide those things for free. They just have to get there. So, yeah, we've had, I never could have imagined how God would lead people to us from across the world.
I see. And do you want to share any of the stories of other women that you've spoken to? I'm curious.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, one that comes to mind is Sarah, and she has openly shared her story. So I don't think she'd mind me sharing this, but she's in Ohio. She's had 2 abortions years ago, and then was unable to get pregnant when she wanted to. Her and her husband have been unable to have children, and that caused her to kind of spiral into alcohol addiction, and just she lost her job and lost most of the people in her life because of that addiction. And she finally, well, actually, her cousin joined our group and invited her to join, and that's how she got connected with us. It wasn't even her seeking it necessarily, but God gave her cousin the wisdom to know that this is what she needed. She joined our online Bible study, and went through that with me, and then she flew from Ohio to do our weekend healing retreat. And she has been clean, sober for well over a year now. She's gotten her job back. Her life is put back together. And she actually leads one of our Bible studies now. She's like a true picture of God just turning something awful into something good. And she's a completely different person. And we have a video actually on our YouTube channel of her sharing her story. And she kind of credits this ministry with helping her find her way again. And of course, that's all God, that's not us, but just feel so honored to be a part of her story. And there's several others like that that I could share that are just incredible, how God has used this ministry to kind of turn someone's life around. And honestly, people who have abortions will stuff it and never talk about it, and then it affects so many areas of their life, just like with Sarah's story. And so I think there are many, many women out there suffering with depression or addictions or, anxiety, and it's stemming from the abortion they had. So I think there are probably lots of women who could really benefit from healing from their abortion, even if they don't realize it's from that.
You know, in our culture really emphasizes focus on your education, focus on your career, and especially for women, you know, that's a very strong message. And I guess the implication is that you really cannot depend on your a husband, right? You know, he may not be reliable. Therefore, you have to be self-sufficient
Mm.
yourself completely, and and then so then I guess you have a lot of women, and then you have, I guess, the sexual revolution, which I guess liberates women to supposedly liberates them to be like immature men, right? I mean, you don't have to persuade a lot of men. They have a very strong sex drive, and I think maybe 3 out of 4 men, if they meet a woman who wants to have sex with them, many men will just go ahead and do
Yeah.
it. And I think women are different. I believe that even if they try to act like men in this area, it's different for women. Do you want to comment on that?
I fully believe most women who are provocative and engage in a lot of sex with, different men and stuff. I believe it's a search, a cry for love. They desire a man, a strong, male presence in their life, a husband. And they've probably been hurt by someone, maybe their father, maybe another man, and they are desperate for love. Most of the women that I have talked to that have had abortions because of, they were with some guy they didn't hardly know, or they were with a married man, or whatever the case is, it's really out of this seeking love and comfort from a man, and which obviously we really need to seek that love and comfort from God. But there are so many people out there that don't realize that, and we're all searching, for God when we don't even realize it. But yeah, I do agree that men tend to be more, it's just almost more socially acceptable for men to just sleep with whomever. But if a woman does that, then they're seen as a harlot or something, and that is, there should be the same standards for men and women. Men also should not be sleeping with whomever that walks around and wants them. Our society is really skewed view of sexuality and what should be appropriate and what's not appropriate.
You know, the ironic thing is that the birth rate in the United States is very low. So we're not even having enough children to replace the population. And so it's causing all kinds of problems because you have a large group of people who are retiring and getting older and need medical care, and then you don't have enough young people being born to grow up and support work and support the rest of society.
Right.
And now I guess the Democrat Party, I guess their solution is just to have unrestricted immigration,
Right.
which immigration is not a bad thing, but it should be done legally, I believe, and
Mhm.
people need to come here who respect our laws. But well, what are your new projects that you're working on?
So, as I mentioned earlier, we have weekend healing retreats, and so they're called Alive Again, because it comes from the story of the prodigal son. When the prodigal son comes home to the father,
Mhm.
he tells the other son, "My son is alive again," and so that's where the name of that healing retreat comes from. When the women leave, they often even look different. They are just so, the weight has been lifted. God has healed them in just beautiful ways. And so we've had so many people reaching out to be a part of these weekend healing retreats. Our last retreat, we had 11 women on the waiting list. So we're hoping to increase the amount of retreats we're able to have each year. We currently do one in the spring and one in the fall. But we're hoping to be able to increase that and do maybe 4 per year. And one of the ways that we would be able to do that is to have a house of our own to have our retreats in. I don't know exactly what that looks like, but I feel like God has a house somewhere for us. Um, we are not that old. We're a 4-year-old ministry, and we rely solely on donations. And so, that's totally would be a miracle if God provided a house for us. But that's where we feel He is leading us, to have a place where we can have our retreats that's our own. We could use for other things as well, and we have a memorial, a beautiful memorial for preborn babies that we could have at the house as well. So yeah, that's our project that we're thinking about, praying about, and we believe God is gonna do for us. We just don't know exactly when or what that will look like.
Oh, okay. And then what about the issue of adoption? Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I think you were 16
Mhm.
when you became pregnant, which is, pretty young to be a mother of a child. What would you say about adoption?
I think adoption is a beautiful option and is underrated, highly has been given a bad rap in our culture, in our society. People consider abortion the better option than adoption. I can't tell you how many people have said, I don't think I could give up my baby, but then they're willing to abort it. And I think it's because, we've seen a lot of bad stories about what adoption can be, but there are so many other stories out there that show that adoption can be a very beautiful thing. I have a friend who was also 16 when she got pregnant. We didn't know each other then, but we have actually a video we made sharing our stories. It's called Two Paths, and it's her choosing adoption and me choosing abortion, and kind of what happened in our lives because of that. She has an open adoption with her daughter, and has been a part of her daughter's life the entire time. Now her daughter's, I guess, maybe 20 or around that. And, they have a wonderful relationship. It's different. It's not what people, would think, but it's perfect for their situation. So I would encourage anybody that is considering adoption or abortion to look into open adoption, because that gives you the opportunity to be in the child's life, even if you're not parenting the child. And that looks different for everybody. I think each family would have to decide what's appropriate for their family, but it is an option that can be extremely beautiful, and is much better than abortion.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Well, let me show people your website, because
Okay,
it really is beautifully done, I have to say.
thank
But
you.
yeah, here's the okay, Find Healing After Abortion, Not Forgotten Ministries. And you have, the Bible studies, weekend retreats, one-on-one support. Yeah, that's wonderful. Um, and then, yeah, I guess you have some testimonies here.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. Yeah, I guess there's a lot of shame that, yeah, people feel, yeah, I do not deserve to be a parent. I mean, that's an
Hmm.
interesting statement. A lot, I
Yeah.
think a lot of people feel that they're afraid of becoming a parent too, right? And
Yeah, absolutely. And then if they are a parent, they're fearful that God's going to punish them in some way by taking their children. And so a lot of times you'll find either parents that have had an abortion are either um, kind of not involved in their child's life because they're scared they're going to lose them, or they're like helicopter parents that are worried about every move they make because they're so afraid they're going to lose them.
right. Wow. Oh,
And this
then
is actually Sarah's story right here that I
oh,
was
okay.
just mentioning. Yeah.
Okay, great. I'm definitely going to look at that for sure. Yeah. All right. Well, this is really beautifully done here.
Thank
And
you.
yeah, actually and then I noticed that there was some type of what participants are saying about the retreat. The
Hmm.
yeah, alive again. Yeah, so I saw that too. The I remember visiting. My wife is Japanese, and we visited Japan one time, and I remember going to this cemetery, and I noticed all these little like baby dolls
Mm.
at at the cemetery, and I asked, why are there so many children's clothes and at this cemetery? And apparently, a lot of Japanese do have abortions.
Mm.
It's actually quite common, and I guess these are from women who had abortions and who feel bad about it. And
Right.
yeah, I mean, in my church, we believe that the spirit of the aborted child is alive in the spirit world, and that when we die and go to the spiritual world, we will see
Mhm.
a child or even a miscarriage, right?
Yeah,
That
absolutely.
that that we will be able to see this, we'll be able to meet the child that we lost through miscarriage or abortion.
Mhm.
So that's a whole another side of things.
Right, and that's one of the things that I think is very powerful about our retreats and Bible study is that we encourage women to think about that and not be afraid of going to heaven and seeing their baby, but to embrace that and look forward to that. Because some women are think their child is mad at them, and of course they think God is mad at them, and they're mad at themselves, and
Oh,
so
right.
learning to forgive themselves and accept God's forgiveness, and to realize their child is not mad at them, they can start to think about their child in a different way, which is very healing.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so if people want to contact you, how should they do that?
So on our website, there's a contact us page if anybody wants to do that. They could also email me, or they could go onto one of our social media pages on Facebook or Instagram, and reach out to us that way. We love to hear from people, and anybody that's interested in a Bible study or a weekend retreat. Those options are available on our website as well, where you can learn more information about those.
Okay, so your website is theyarenotforgotten.com.
.com. Yeah.
Great. Okay, well, thank you for coming on the King's Report, and we really wish you a lot of success.
Thank you.
All right, have a great day.
You too.